أوكي، الحمد لله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So today we will be doing half of or some of Ayah 13, inshallah, and we will complete it tomorrow, inshallah. So the tafsir of this part of the ayah is shorter than we have had the last couple of days. If we go through the words, first of all, let's get my pen up. Okay. Okay, so first of all, before we go into the words, the reason for the revelation. So this ayah was revealed when Mecca was liberated in the 8th year after the Hijrah. Okay. And there was an incident at the Kaaba, okay, where the Prophet ﷺ, he went to the Kaaba, he went inside, he prayed 2 rak'ah inside the Kaaba, and then he began giving a khutbah at the door of the Kaaba, and he had Bilal with him, radiallahu anhu. Bilal was the first mu'adhin, okay, the first one to do the adhan in Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ asked him to climb on top of the Kaaba to make the adhan, okay? And he was known for his beautiful voice. He was known as the slave who was freed by Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, when he was being mistreated, when Bilal was being mistreated by his master. And he was, of African, very dark skin. So when Bilal went up to make the adhan, one of the Quraysh said to his friend, he said, Alhamdulillah that so-and-so has died and he didn't see Muhammad with this black crow. Okay, so he referred to Bilal radiallahu anhu as a black crow. And he looked down on him because of his skin color. So the friend said to the other one, he said, be quiet because Muhammad will be able to hear you. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then Allah sent Jibreel with this ayah. Okay. And the Prophet ﷺ announced during the khutbah itself, he recited this ayah. And this ayah is telling us that Allah created all of the sons of Adam. They are created from a single origin. Okay, so therefore you are all one race. We are all one race. They all come from one male and one female, Adam and Hawa. And then from them, Allah spread the people far and wide. So if we go through the ayah, Allah said, Ya ayyuhan nas. So rather than what we've been used to, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, this is an address to all of mankind, okay, all of the human race. Oh, mankind, okay. Inna is made up of indeed and na, so inna plus na is indeed we. And this is referring to Allah. Allah refers to himself as we, the royal we, to show his status and his greatness. So many times he refers to himself as we, to himself. خَلَقَنَاكُمْ خَلَقَ is he created. خَلَقَنَا is we created. So again, Allah is referring to himself as we. خَلَقَنَاكُمْ, we created you all. Okay, we created you all. Min, from ذَكَرٍ. ذَكَر is a male. Okay, so that's referring to Adam, a male. And wa untha, which is a female. Okay, so we created you, indeed we created you all, min dhakarin wa untha. If we go through this part first, inshallah, then we will go through the next. So Allah, the address is to all of humanity. Ya ayyuhan nas, irrespective of what background you come from, what language you speak, what generation you live in. إِنَّا خَلَقَنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنثَى. Allah is saying, as long as you are human, as long as you are a human being, then your origin is Adam and Hawa. So there is no difference between you and anybody else in terms of your origin. 1,000 years ago or 1,000 years from now, as long as you are a human being, there is no difference between you. The origin is exactly the same. And tomorrow when we look at the rest of the ayah, we will see what it is that makes somebody stand out from one another. Okay? Then Allah said here, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ, جَعَلَ is to make, or He made. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ, we made you. Okay, we made you all. And we made you all as شُعُوبًا. Okay, as you'll see it translated as nations. But we will go through what was said by some of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. وَقَبَائِلَ, so we made you all into nations. وَقَبَائِلَ, قبائل is the plural of قبيلة, which is like a smaller than a shu'ub, smaller than a sha'ab. Okay, the sha'ab is the nations, and then the qabail or the qabila is a tribe, which is smaller. So we made you all into nations and tribes. لِتَعَارَفُوا, this li is giving us a reason. Okay, lam al-ta'alil, so that لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you may know one another, or you may recognize one another, you may live with one another. So we said shu'ub was the plural of sha'ab, okay, and it is a race, a nation, a people, okay, huge groups of people. And the qabail is like the subdivisions, okay, so smaller groups of people known as tribes. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, he said, the shu'ub is the large groups of people, and the qabaila is what I just said, is like the tribes, the hidden groups of people, or within those nations, within the shu'ub, there are smaller groups that are not as well known as the shu'ub. And Qatada, he said that shu'ub is the nations, and then the qabaila is where you get your lineage from. So and so is the son of so and so, is the son of so and so, and they are from the tribe of Quraysh, or for example. And you can see that it is a similar meaning. There's no contradiction here. So in summary, okay, Allah is saying, Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind, all of humanity, okay, everybody has the same origin, and everyone is going through the same processes. They are growing in the same way. They have their two eyes, their mouth, their ears. Everybody's going through the same processes. And that is that you live in your nations, that you live in your communities, you have your backgrounds, you have, you speak your languages, you have your cultures, etc. Everybody is going through the same thing. And the reason for these differences, okay, so we come from the same origin, but then we are, we are made into nations, we are made into tribes. So we have those differences. And the reason we have those differences is in order to be tested with one another. Okay, so how are you going to treat one another? How are you going to behave with one another? How are you going to treat each other even though there are those differences? How are you going to live with one another? And Allah will allow us to do whatever it is we want, because we have been given that free choice, as long as it is it is within our ability as humans, as the way we are created. Allah gives us a reason here as well, لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that, why did Allah make us into nations and tribes? Not to have racism. This is not the purpose of Allah making us into nations and tribes. لِتَعَارَفُوا is so that we can know each other. We can recognize each other through the lineage. And this is what Mujahid, radiallahu anh, he said that this refers to somebody saying, I am the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so from the tribe of such and such, so that you are able to recognize each other through your lineage and through your tribes. This is how we recognize one another. This is how we know, this is how we get to know one another, is through our lineage, through our tribes. This is how we know that there is a difference here, or there is a difference here, or their culture is going to be slightly different because they are from that tribe, or their language is going to be different because they are from that tribe. The purpose of the nations and the tribes is not to feel superior over one another. Okay, that was not the reason why Allah made us into nations and tribes. The reason behind these is so that you can acquire knowledge of the customs of one another, the ways of one another, not so that we boast to one another. Okay, not so that we feel superior. And we know that it is common even now, okay, that people of a different skin color, or people of a different language, or people from a different I know sisters who they've not been allowed to marry because the person they want to marry is from a different tribe, even if the ethnicity is the same. If that person is from a different tribe, then they have not been allowed to marry. But this is not the reason why Allah made us into nations and tribes. It wasn't so that we would separate. Allah didn't say so that you can be divided. لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you can recognize one another. So there are a few benefits that refer to this part of the ayah, and then we will go through the rest of the benefits tomorrow after we have completed the ayah, inshallah. So one of the benefits, which is, we have already discussed it, but it is that we come from the same origin. So the source of everyone, every single human being, the source of him or her is the same. So in terms of that lineage, okay, all of our lineage goes back to Adam alayhi salam and his wife. So everyone is equal in terms of their origin, in terms of their lineage, in terms of being human. Yeah, and man's origin is man. Yeah, we all come from man, and not anything else. So there is nothing for us to feel superior above other human beings when our origin is exactly the same. I came from Adam and Hawa, and so did you. Your neighbor may be darker in skin, or has red hair, or whatever it might be, but your origin is the same. So there is nothing to make you more superior or behave more superior than them. Another benefit is that the dhakar, the male, is mentioned first. Then Allah said, wa untha, and this is because Adam alayhi salam was created first, and then Hawa was created from him, and from one father and from one mother. And the reason for our creation is the same for all of us, which is to worship Allah. وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We were all created for one purpose, and one purpose only, and that is to worship Allah. Allah said in another ayah, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, to see, or to test you, to see which of you will be best in deeds. So your purpose is to worship Allah and to use the freedom of choice that He has given you to be the best in your deeds, to fulfill your potential that Allah has given you, and to be able to meet Allah in a state of when you are worshipping Him, and to meet Allah with all of those deeds that you have done and all of those choices that you have made. They have resulted in meeting Allah with reward and acceptance of those actions. Another benefit which we touched on is to Allah said لِتَعَارَفُوا, to know each other, to recognize each other, not to be proud. This is not the way that we spread Islam, is not to look down on others and feel that we are better than others because of our lineage or because of our race or because of our skin color or because of any of those superficial things. And another benefit is that this diversity that we have, the diversity that we have, with the languages and the cultures and the different features and all of these things, this should, rather than create division or racism or prejudices, this should create a curiosity. It should create interest. It should, allow us to see how the different races and the different cultures and the different ways they come together and they complement each other. The different races are there to complement each other. Can you imagine if everybody looked the same and everybody dressed the same and everybody spoke the same language? There wouldn't be that love for learning and that curiosity and that interest in different people's ways and their different cultures and getting to know different people. There would be nothing to get to know if everybody was the same. Subhanallah. Allah said, لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you can get to know them, you can recognize them, you can you can learn from one another the different ways and the different the different, there will be differences in the cooking and the differences in in the teaching and so many different things that come together that allow us to learn different things. If everybody was the same, then we would be very bored. And Allah knows this. We are His creation, and He knows what it is that we need, and He knows what it is that we need in order to thrive and to flourish. And this is one of those things. We need those differences amongst us in order to thrive, and in order to, it's part of enjoying life as well, not to humiliate and not to put down, not to feel superior and not to boast. This was not the reason for the creation. Now, I have completed what I had of the tafsir of this part of the ayah. I'm afraid it is shorter today, and it's very straightforward. It was not really possible to expand on it either, which I do like to do if we have extra time, but it was difficult to expand on this. But a quick question: does anybody know where on the earth Adam and Hawa were put? When they were first put on the earth, where is it that they were put? Anybody on the Zoom know? Somebody's put something in the chat. Let's have a look. No? Okay, we got an I don't know. Okay, so this is something that I have been doing with my children, actually. We started a while ago, and it's a series of books called The Stories of the World. And it starts from the origin of, the creation of the actual heavens and the earth. And then it goes on and it talks about how, obviously, we know the creation of Adam and Hawa, and it talks about even the creation before that. and what happened to the earth in order to make it perfectly suitable to live on. Subhanallah. And then when they were placed on the earth, it was in the sort of in the Middle Eastern area, okay, Saudi, Palestine, those, that sort of area is where they were first put on the earth. And then we know that at the beginning of the creation of man, there was no technology, no vehicles as such, okay, for them to get around, no boats, no. So when they had their children and they had their children, and Adam and Hawa, eventually they passed away, and the generations went on, and we know that they were upon Tawheed, and they started coming away from Tawheed. And when they were fully immersed in their shirk is when Allah sent Nuh alayhi salam. Now, I always wondered, when the flood of Nuh alayhi salam came, did it flood the entire earth? But actually, when we studied it, there were not people on the entire earth. They were still in one location. Okay, they hadn't spread so far because there wasn't the possibility of spreading, because they didn't have the vehicles and the ability to go too far. Okay, so they spread out, but their spreading was through walking. So they were not so spread out. They still lived in close communities. So when Nuh alayhi salam came and he spread the message of Islam, it was a very limited number of people that actually received that message and rejected that message. So when the flood came and when Nuh alayhi salam was told to collect, the animals, the two of each, male and female, he didn't have to travel the entire earth. And the reason I'm saying this is because I always thought that it wasn't until I studied it with my children that I realized, that would have been impossible. He didn't have to travel the entire earth to collect the animals that he needed to collect. It was just in that local area that was being used by all of the people that were on the earth at that time. And the first ship or the first boat, the first transport for the sea or for the water was made by, inspired by Allah, made by Nuh alayhi salam. And then, after the ship stopped upon the mountain of Judi and all of the disbelievers had passed away, then from there, then they started to make more transport for the sea. And then they managed to spread out. So then the sons of Nuh, they spread out to China and to India and to different, different places of the earth, because now they had sea transport, or they had boats and ships that they were able to make. And it was from there that they then spread to different parts of the earth. And then we were made into shu'uban, okay, nations, وقبائل, and the tribes. And it was and I just thought that was very interesting. For those of you that already know it, alhamdulillah, it was not something that I didn't really know how that happened. But yeah, anyway, I'll stop there, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. And the main message of this was to eradicate that, any feeling of I'm better than you, or my race is better than you, or my tribe is better than you. This wasn't the reason why Allah made us into different nations and tribes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamualaikum, Sister Zuleika. Somebody just asked on the group about the name of the book that you mentioned that you studied with your children.
Yes, it's called The Stories of the World. I'll just get the author, just one moment. Okay, it's called Stories of the World, and the author is Safiya Iqbal, and it's actually a set of 6 books. And it starts off the books are thinner, so which are used maybe more with younger children, and then each book goes into more detail about the different stages of life and the different communities that came and the way that people spread on the earth. And it's sort of a mixture of geography, history, science, those subjects, because it does go into detail about the different countries and how the physical features of those countries sometimes affected, the way people lived. Because people don't live in different ways for, they don't come up with those different ways. It's usually based on the physical features of that country, the climate, the weather, the mountains or the desert, this sort of thing. So yeah, Sophia Iqbal is the author of those books.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. Okay, everybody, inshallah, we'll see you all tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.